Good day all and welcome to another interesting class on PUL341. Today we are on to topic 6 and in topic 6 we shall be looking at offenses against the person. I am Dr. Akujobi Alero, your facilitator for this class. Now, under these offenses against the person, what are we talking about here? What do we have in mind? Now, all offenses against persons include all forms of assault, either unlawful homicide in the form of murder, manslaughter, infanticide, or rape. Assault generally is the application of unlawful force or threat on the person of another. And normally the person that is being threatened or that is being under assault that is assaulting must have the apparent ability to carry out the threat or instill fear in the other person. So if, for instance, a little child, for instance, comes before you and said, "I'll beat you," definitely you will know that that little child cannot beat you. That little child is not has not been able to instill fear in you and is not capable of carrying out his threat. Now, definition of assault can be found in Section 252 of the Criminal Code or Section 264 of the Penal Code. Basically, to be regarded as an assault, it must be unlawful. That is, it must not be authorized, justified, or excused by law. Of course, we will see instances where an offense is justified, where it's excused, or where it's authorized by law. Where it is under such circumstances, you cannot say you have been assaulted. However, elements to look out for in the absence of consent and the threat or the application of force include what the prosecution must prove. One is that the assault did occur. Two, that the assault proceeded from the accused person. Three, that the assault is unlawful, like we have said, and also that it is not justified by law. Now, we should also note that mere words directed at somebody will not amount to assault unless accompanied by some bodily act or gesture associated with the words indicating an intention of assaulting or which an ordinary person construes as indicating such an intention. So where there are certain things you tell somebody, normally it will not amount to an assault. But where it is accompanied by some gestures, like for instance, pointing finger at the person and talking at the same time, or doing some certain things that the person, without, particularly when the person knows your present ability and you give such threat even by words, of course, that will amount to assault. Defenses to assault include when the assault is justified. So when the assault is justified, like you are under self-defense, you are doing something, or you have to do something to protect yourself, and you have to hit back, something like that. Of course, that is a defense to say that you did not assault, but you are only acting in defense of person under you, in defense of yourself, in defense of property, or even, for instance, a medical doctor carrying out a surgical operation. In that process and within that time, cannot be charged for the offense of assault. We should also note that, as distinguished from tort law, assault and battery are criminally punished as assault only under criminal law. Having said that, we'll look at some of those forms of assault, like we've mentioned. We've talked of homicide. This includes murder, we've said, manslaughter, and the likes. So we shall just basically be looking at what homicide is, which basically is the killing of a human being by another. And we've said that homicide could be lawful or unlawful. And lawful is when, for instance, we've said where it is justified, where it's excused, where it's authorized. Again, killing in the execution of court sentence in capital punishment, treason, through hanging, public execution, all those are authorized under the law. Under Section 262 of the Criminal Code, killing by a person carrying out lawful execution of a process or warrant or sentence or in making an arrest in order to overcome resistance. Now, killing while suppressing a riot or insurrection, these are all examples of lawful homicide. Killing by accident and without criminal negligence, killing in self-defense or in defense of property. These are all examples of lawful homicide. Unlawful homicide, we said, includes murder, manslaughter, and other types of unlawful homicide, which can be found in Section 306 to 316 of the Criminal Code. On the Penal Code, you see it under Section 221 of the Penal Code. Now, what is murder? Basically, the unlawful killing of another person with premeditation, expressly or impliedly. This can be found in Section 315 to 317 of the Criminal Code. and such killing could be in the first degree, in the second degree, depending on depending on the involvement, depending on the grievousness of the accused person involvement. So Section 315 and 315 provide for varying degrees of unlawful homicide. And Section 315 states that any person who unlawfully kills another is guilty of an offense which is called murder or manslaughter, according to the circumstances of the case. So there are a lot and many cases under murder. So where the cause of death is clear, medical evidence, of course, will no longer be necessary. It could be necessary where it is not that clear and it needs to establish that that was what causes the death. Then medical evidence becomes relevant. Punishment for death is normally death penalty, as provided for in Section 319 of the Criminal Code. Again, exception is found in Section 319, subsection 2, where a woman is pregnant and the death sentence is reduced to life imprisonment. Like I mentioned before, there are many cases on murder, and among these are the cases of Ahmed and State, Uguru and the State, Omini and the State, and so many others. Now, so after talking about murder, attempted murder is also something we should take note of, because under Section 320, it provides that the prosecution must prove the intent to kill or cause grievous bodily harm. And normally, when we talk of attempt, the offense is complete, even when no harm is done. Even when no harm is done. Note that the intent is established from the circumstance of the case. For instance, when you intend to poison someone, you've taken all steps out to do such a thing, and just before the person could sip the drink or whatever, maybe the person had a call and had to drop the drink and all of that, or you intended to kill and the person had even sipped some, but unknown to you, the quantity of poison put into the drink is not enough to cause the death of somebody. That of course is attempted murder. And the case of State and Sunday Obo is instructive there. Then briefly we look into manslaughter. Under the Criminal Code, only unlawful killing that does not amount to murder, of course, is seen as manslaughter. And it is also referred to as killing without malice, without pre-malice, without premeditation, as to disturb. It is normally an intent formed under the influence of passion induced by provocation, and the product of a mind so disturbed as to be incapable of deliberation and calculation. So all of this can be seen in the case of Obaji and the State, that spells out the ingredients of manslaughter. Okay, we also see in Odibo and the State and all of that. So what is important is that the prosecution must establish the death of the accused by the voluntary, yes, but without premeditation of the accused person. The access this is very important, that the prosecution must be able to establish this. Again, manslaughter can be both voluntary and involuntary. An involuntary manslaughter arises in situations where there's unintentional killing, gross negligence, or where the death arose from an unlawful act involving the risk of harm. For instance, leaving a child or a baby in a bath and maybe attending to some other issues. It is not a voluntary killing, it's an involuntary killing arising out of gross negligence, or driving in a very reckless manner in a place where one is not supposed to, causing the death of other people. Also, for instance, using faulty vehicle and things like that. What is important to note is that the negligence must be of a higher degree than that required under the law of tort. The accused must have been negligent or plainly reckless. The accused must have been negligent or plainly reckless, as in the case of State Joseph and the State. It's also let's also see what infanticide involves. When we talk of infanticide, we are talking of a situation where a mother kills a child under the age of 12 months, and normally the mother must be suffering from lactation, that is after birth, and this can be seen in Section 327 Criminal Code and 226 subsection 6 of the Penal Code. We also mention is also made of abortion that involves an unlawful procurement of miscarriage. It is also a felony and can be committed with or without a child, even if it is unknown to the mother. But if you've gone through the process of trying because you think you're pregnant and you want to remove the baby, so it is an unlawful procurement, of miscarriage. The case of Ara and Edgar is instructive and it pointed to an exception. In that case, in order to save life of the mother of the child, an abortion will not be deemed to be illegal. Now, also, we should also note the fact that the law punishes aiding and abetting of abortion, as in the case of Roe and Wade. Now, before we finally stop, we also look at the case of rape, provided for under Section 357 of the Criminal Code. Basically, the act of rape or the guilty the guilty aim or the accused result of rape is the unlawful intercourse with a woman, sexual intercourse with a woman without her consent, or even with her consent, but forcefully, threatfully, or by intimidation obtained, or through fraud or fear. Now, we should note that the definition is restrictive, as according to the definition, it's only the male that can be convicted of the offense. Now, the mens rea is the intention to have intercourse with a woman, either knowing that she does not consent to the act, or one being reckless as to whether she consents or not. Another act we have to look at under this section, apart from the criminal code, is the provisions of section 51 of the Sexual Intercourse Act 1956 and Sexual Offences Act 1976. Also, the provisions of section 293 of the Penal Code, and also that of section 2110 of the Evidence Act. So now let's look at the requirement for the procurement or for the offense of rape. One, like we've mentioned, is consent. Once consent has been given or consent can be implied, the offense of rape will not fly. Then two also is the fact that consent cannot be given by an underage person. Okay, if it's somebody, a child under the age of 12, or somebody that is sleeping by an underage person, or someone that is not in a position to give such a consent. Now, the court will always look at to see whether all of these are available. The case of State and Ojo is instrumental. DPP and Morgan is also instrumental. So we also see the case of Osadeye and the State, where the accused person gave drugs and liquor to the victim, allegedly for the purpose of exciting her. Of course, it was held that putting her in such a state defeats consent. So consent we are talking about here must be willingly given, must be consent that from the fact of the case, every person will be able to know that yes, this consent can be implied. Another feature for rape to be established is penetration. The act of intercourse is complete upon penetration and needs not to be proved that there was emission of semen. Again, cases in point are Iko and the State, Okoyomo and the State. Then eventually we also, most times as a matter of practice, the element of corroboration also will be required. It is not essential, but in most cases in practice, it is normally a requirement. So corroboration basically is evidence which confirms in some material particular not only that the offense has been committed, but also that it was the accused who committed it. Somebody witnessed it, somebody has been able to, somebody saw it all happen, and is also giving evidence in witness. So these are the fact that it must be corroborated. So, like again, the case of Iko and the State, Jagade and the State, also the case of Amadi and the State are all instructive under this. So basically, three main things that must be established: consent, penetration, and corroboration in the offense of rape. So, husband and what's the position between husband and wife? Can they be guilty also of the offense of rape? Going by Section 6 of the Criminal Code, unlawful carnal knowledge of the wife between husband and wife is not possible because by virtue of their marriage, implied consent by the wife is taken. it's implied that upon marriage they both agreed to give of themselves, together, give of themselves to each other without any issues. However, inordinate or unreasonable demand by a husband, or if the husband becomes a drunkard, or one that has venereal diseases without wife's information, or without the wife knowing. In this case, where even if the wife gives consent, such consent can be said to not have been given willfully or willingly, so such cannot be deemed to be consent. In that kind of a case, the husband could be guilty of indecent assault. So where, for instance, he also aids the rape of his wife by another person. There are situations where men, in order maybe to punish the wife for one thing or the other, bring in another man to assault the wife, to rape the wife. So where he does that, where he aids or abates, and then the husband will be deemed to be guilty of aiding and abating of rape. So where the husband uses force, he also may be guilty of assault. Sorry. Cases in point are R and Miller, and also the case of Alausa and Udusoto. You know. Also, we should know that under Section 7, a woman or child under 14 years of age might be guilty of aiding and abetting and procuring the offense of rape, but not actually committing the offense of rape. Now, a complaint for the offense must be made within the first reasonable opportunity. This is because such at that time there could still be evidence, either wounds around the woman, around the private part of the woman, and things like that to establish that it was actually committed. It is also important for us to note that rape is life imprisonment with or without whipping, while the offense of attempted rape carries 14 years imprisonment. Lastly, we shall just be looking at some questions. One is that generally the law does not permit the killing of a human being by another. However, there are instances where such killings are justified. Discuss with the aid of authorities. We've said this in the past. Those instances where they are justified, authorized, excused, we should be able to discuss them and give examples where such killings are lawful. Again, two, with the aid of authorities, we are asked to discuss the required intent for sustaining a charge of murder. This comes under section 316 subsection 2, all the intent that are stated therein. You are supposed to provide them and discuss them with the aid of authorities. 3, with the aid of authorities, distinguish between voluntary and involuntary manslaughter. Of course, voluntary manslaughter is that normally under provocation, where, for instance, without premeditation, you see something and you act on impulse in the heat of passion. Of course, because of the fact that you have not planned such and all of that, and then do result, you will be guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter, we've also said, it normally involves recklessness of the highest order, gross negligence of the highest order, reckless driving, and all things like that that could result in the death of somebody else, leading to involuntary manslaughter. Then finally, we have to explain the defenses to an accused person charged with rape. Are there exceptions to the offense of rape? The defenses, like I said, absence of consent, where you can say that the person was there, you didn't give your consent to the person, or you can also raise the defense of incapacity, that the person was not capable of doing what the offense is being charged for, or you can also raise the defense of the case of husband and wife, that what is normally what the best that you can bring against them is indecent assault, but definitely not the offense of rape. So with this, we'll stop here today, and I hope everything you've understood what we've talked about. Where you have issues, where you have questions, you want more clarifications, please send it to my email so that we can discuss further. Thank you for your time.